I'm sure so many of you have heard of the supplement line called Perelel. If you have not, you should definitely check it out. Today, we're going to be talking to the CEO and the co founder, Victoria. We're going to talk about her experiences being pregnant. She has 4 kids, her experience with pregnancy loss, her journey creating the supplement line, and what she's learned and her big takeaways, and how she balances it all as a mom. Here we go. Why don't we just like start from the top of your story, starting Parallel? Because I thought that it was so inspiring and also so moving that you took something that was a personal experience and decided to put it into action with your journey in your pregnancy.
Yeah, so we started working on Parallel, I guess now like 6 years ago. It was inspired by my second child, my daughter Imogen, who is now just over 6. But she was born with a cleft, and I, as a, it was quite an interesting sort of saga of figuring that out at the 20-week scan and kind of what the next steps would be and what the process was for her. And as we were dealing with that and figuring out surgeons and what the care looked like, I kind of went down this whole rabbit hole of sort of the why and the how. Found out that it was likely a nutrition related birth defect, and then also like sort of started digging more broadly and sort of 1 in 33 babies in the US are born with a birth defect, and a lot of which are nutrition related, and they all kind of come back to your prenatal vitamins. And so doing all this research, figuring out like it was the format of ingredients that really matter, the timing of when you have them. A lot of these birth defects that are nutrition related are form within the first 10 weeks of a pregnancy. So you kind of need to be taking your vitamins like before you find out you're pregnant or
Right.
really early on immediately, which I just feel like no one really knew. And so it was like doing all this research, talking to these doctors, and saying like there should be something better. And also like in the supplement industry, it's what is called a prenatal is totally unregulated. So you can call anything a prenatal and it can have what ingredients you choose, and the onus is on the consumer to check the label and say, oh, this has enough of what I need, or it has all the right ingredients. And so it felt like a terrible experience for busy moms who were doing so much else at that time. And so we kind of came together on this idea of creating better products, like better researched ingredients, all the like highest quality, most bioavailable formats, but also incorporating the timing. So your body really needs different things and is completely different depending on where you are in your pregnancy, whether you're postpartum, whether you're trying to get pregnant. And so had this idea in mind from being moms, from going through it. And then we started talking to all these doctors, and they so wholeheartedly agreed with us and encouraged us and had the ideas for formulations. And so we just sort of started working on it. We brought on our medical co-founder, who is a practicing OBGYN here in Santa Monica, and then other doctors from reproductive endocrinologists, many of which I had seen. So we kind of took in all these protocols that they had already and created these products to better serve women and be really targeted to their exact needs.
I love that you kind of take the need for a woman going and doing like all this crazy research with what you're supposed to take at what phase you're supposed to take it. I remember when I was started like thinking about having kids and someone said to me, "Oh, you need to start taking a prenatal way before you even get pregnant," which was something that I had never even heard of. And then you think about the facts that, when you say that the nutrition and, the supplements that you take within the first 10 weeks of pregnancy is so important, because some people don't even find out that they're pregnant until 6 or 8 weeks, depending on, your cycle, or also what you have going on in your life that makes you say like, "Oh, I missed a cycle," or maybe I'm late. There are so many different factors. Can you talk about, when you talk about your story, you talk about that, a lot of the nutrition oriented things that happen when developing a baby are crucial in the first 10 weeks. hearing that news for you, how did you not take that and just sit and beat yourself up about, I could have done this, I should have done that? Because I feel like that's something that women do, we do that already. But then you hear something like, oh, your baby has a cleft. How do you not go home and just sit in that state?
I mean, I've had a lot of therapy, and our daughter is absolutely perfect, and I wouldn't change anything about her. But I hate that she's had 5 surgeries under her belt and she's had pain. And, she has a scar that she will, be aware of. She has a bunch of fake teeth. She has some development issues. And I definitely did really go down this deep, dark place of blaming myself. And I think that also inspired me more to create Parallel, where I don't know if, like, maybe this would have happened anyways. And I want no other mother to blame themselves, but I wanted every mother to be able to say, I did everything I could, and not have that feeling like, could I have done something else?
Mhm.
Because I think that's what devastated me during this time, and it still does. And every time my daughter needs another surgery, I beat myself up about it. But I think we wanted to create a company where every mom would say, so many things can go wrong in a pregnancy and in a delivery and in your child's life. Like, I think we've all discovered that being a parent is wearing your heart on the outside.
Mhm.
But you just want to feel like you did everything that you can and you check that box. And I never wanted another mom to feel that question that I had. And so I think that's what's really inspired us to keep going with Parallel and keep building this and making sure that this woman has everything that she needs.
It really is such an incredible thing when you think about pregnancy. I feel like it's something that, prior to being pregnant, that you kind of take for granted as you assume, oh, someone's pregnant, it's going to, in 9 months, they're going to have a baby and they're going to go home and it's kind of like you assume that that's just what the routine experience is. And then when you are pregnant, or if you have a pregnancy that has some sort of a complication, it really shows you, or somebody who had a different experience, it shows you how incredibly precious and also so fragile, pregnancy, even getting pregnant, having a healthy pregnancy, and also having a healthy delivery and a postpartum. Like, there are so many phases of this that, we take for granted if you haven't heard, met, or experienced someone who's had, a challenging time in that. Is that something that comes up a lot for you when you're developing products and also just interacting with the marketplace?
Yeah, completely. And I feel like it's been incredible how the conversation has changed. And I feel like we are starting to have a lot more of those conversations, but that definitely went into what we were building and the products we build and how we support our customer. My first pregnancy ended in a loss, and this was 8 years ago. And I was one of the first people of my friend group to get pregnant. And similarly, like, I was floored. Like, I didn't understand. Like, I got pregnant, which meant that I was going to have a baby,
Mhm.
and it didn't end out up that way. And I have 4 beautiful, healthy children, but I've had 4 pregnancy losses, and like each one has rocked me. And I feel like it's been part of how we think about Parallel and supporting this woman and like supporting every moment through. And, we 2 years in developed a recovery support pack, because from both, like, I had gone through this quite a few times during the existence of Parallel, and people writing in where you're going through a pregnancy loss and you no longer want to see a product that has a baby on it, or see it saying first trimester or anything that's related to that. And you also want to like feel like you're doing something. And so that's why we created that product. It's a very slow mover. It's not a revenue driver, doesn't need to be, but it's like to give this woman sort of that grace and giving her something she can do and feel like she is doing to support herself and like honor that period. And so I think that's been a lot of what we're doing here too is like seeing these different moments for this woman and not kind of pretending it's just like you're pregnant, then you have a baby, and everything is good and everything is fine. And really supporting this woman through these changes that don't always work out, or even if it does work out and you have a really brutal postpartum period, like you need different levels of support.
It's also interesting because you hear about generations before us that never heard anything about a woman's nutrition when they were trying to get pregnant, when they were pregnant, and also when they were postpartum. And obviously, it's a time now where we talk so much more openly about the need for more advocacy in women's health. And then also this time that your product is, catering to, which is the time where as a woman, you are giving so much of your body and your nutrients to growing a human, inside, outside, prepping your body for, growing a human. So it all makes sense. And being in the space that you're in, what is kind of like the biggest feedback since you have so many experts that are there to make the product as successful and as catered to a woman as possible, but also, being in that space that is fairly new of, catering a product like a prenatal, postnatal support pack. Just hearing that feedback and being in that space, what has that been like?
I think what's been interesting as the conversation has evolved, and we launched the company, well, 5 years ago. We got told like, "How big is this market?" And I was like, "The market of women? Like, it's pretty big." And like
Large.
people really discounted it. Yeah, it was quite interesting. And so now, luckily, there is more conversation about sort of women's health research and how underfunded it is and how much of a problem that really is. So it's been fascinating to see this evolve over the last 5 years. I think what we have heard from both like our doctors as well as our customers, and where we've really leaned in is on that education side, where to allow women to receive better care, they have to better advocate for themselves. And so improving education on like what is happening with your body, like what are the changes, so you can really understand and sort of this body literacy of understanding your cycles, understanding what's normal, what's not normal, and then being able to advocate for yourself in this healthcare system is really important, especially in a time where there's a lack of research and kind of a system where there's not as much time available to be spent on women and on patients. So, giving women the tools to understand what's happening and speak up if they need to. And, I think a lot of this goes into the maternal health crisis and things like that, of really, allowing women to understand their own bodies and advocate in the system.
We talked about the importance of things like folic acid when you're pregnant and when you find out that you're pregnant. Are there other big takeaways that you've had from creating your product in especially catering it to different phases of a woman's life that you have been surprised to find out women are deficient in or aren't focusing enough on, like folic acid?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting too is there's like we look at the ingredients as two different sides of one is like for baby and baby development, and the other is for like the mom and actually supporting the mom. Like magnesium is really important later in pregnancy for muscle cramps and sleep and like restless leg syndrome and all of these things that you kind of suffer through your pregnancy, when you're like, oh, you can actually better support mom. And so I think leaning into a lot of those has been really important, of like how best to support you while you're growing this baby. I think one of the products that we just launched, which is sort of all of these really important things, we launched a protein earlier this month. And it's kind of just that, of like your protein needs are 33% higher during pregnancy. And also as we expand our stages during like perimenopause and aging. And I think it's also, and like you said, of like women in generations past, like haven't really thought about their own nutrition. And if you think about that, we're growing a baby and the stress on our body, we probably need some sort of support during that stage.
Why do you think it is that women don't understand how much protein we need? Because we kind of are always assuming that when you talk about protein, that that's something that like is for men, that they're going to be eating all the protein. But then when you think about it and you explain it as you're setting yourself up, your body to grow a human, they take so much, babies take so much nutrition from our own bodies. And then, you know, you deliver a baby and that your body goes through a whole thing. And then as you age, the importance of protein only increases.
I don't know. I do like protein has been branded as this like male category
Yeah.
gym bro thing. And it's like women are doing so much when you're growing a baby and then you're feeding a baby and like how depleted you are. It's like your protein needs really increase during pregnancy. Protein helps fetal growth. Like it's such an important ingredient. I think it's great that it's also gone so totally viral on TikTok and everyone's eating cottage cheese. But if you can't consume that when you're pregnant, like there should be other ways. But I I mean, I think this all goes back to like women's health research hasn't really been a focus. Like women or like gender has not been considered in research previously. And like women and men are different. Like our bodies are very different. Where women are not small men. We have hormonal changes where
Right.
protein can actually support different hormonal changes. And then, you know, when you're aging and your estrogen declines, like your muscle mass declines. And so as women age, which is different than men, there's a severe decrease in muscle mass, which is also terrible for your body and your brain. And so this is something super important for women, not just through pregnancy, but through aging.
It's so funny because I actually never really even thought of how important protein is until I was pregnant. And my husband was always like, you need to be eating more protein. You're growing a human. You need to, you know, make sure that you're replenishing yourself. And then after I had, uh, each time after I have my kids, then like my husband comes on me and he's like, you know, you need to eat to win. You're feeding the baby, you're breastfeeding the baby. You need to make sure you're replenishing protein. And now my mom, all my mom is talking about, because my mom, you know, does so much work in women's health and in brain health. And she's always talking about how she needs to be having more protein, how my sister and I need to be eating more protein. We need to increase our protein and the importance of paying attention to your muscle mass, knowing that it does decrease as you get older. So I love the idea of being able to incorporate that because it's not like you want to be consuming mass amounts of like, you know, steak every single day. So being able to get it in other ways, like what you've created, takes, you know, that factor out for a lot of women of where you're going to be getting that protein. The idea also that I think is one of the reasons that I have so many friends that use Parallel is that it is very clear with when to take what, which takes out the confusion of, oh, I just had my baby. Do I need to take a postnatal? Where do I get the postnatal? Do I change brands for that? Is everything that I'm taking breastfeeding and pregnancy safe? Because there's different ingredients and things that you can be taking at different phases of life in general. Has that been a big appeal for for Parallel specifically? Is just the straightforwardness of when to take what?
Yes. And it's funny, we just did sort of like a review of our reviews and what people mention. And a lot of them mention sort of that convenience and sort of like the daily packets and the products are changing. So when they're on conception, if they find out they're pregnant, they let us know. And then like the products will change automatically once with their pregnancy all the way through postpartum. And so it's like very clear of like they're gonna just get the right products for them. And then yeah, I think we've really with feedback like leaned into like the seals on our website of like you know that this is pregnancy or postpartum safe, like working on kind of a feedback loop if someone has a product that isn't and they like also have a pregnancy product, we're kind of letting them know they might want to stop taking that and making sure that they because I think that is the crazy part of this supplement category. There's a bunch of products out there that leverage, you know, whether it's like pregnant influencers or people in that space, but it's actually not a pregnancy safe product. And I think that's also inspired us to launch different products. That's why we launched like a greens product that was pregnancy and postpartum safe, because we thought it was crazy that one wasn't as clear about that. And that's definitely been something where this our woman knows if she's coming to us, like she can trust the products and she can feel good about taking it during the right stages.
You mentioned that there's a lot of, different products in this space in general, just the supplement space is, there's a lot going on in it. How have you guys made it such a big priority to stand out from everything else?
I think it's been twofold of sort of our personal experiences of feeling failed by this category.
Mhm.
And so really leaning into our doctors, our medical co-founder, she reviews every product. And what's interesting in her take is she looks at every product and she's like, what would happen if someone took this every single day? Would that be safe for every single day? And that's her lens. And so I think it's really, forced us to have like a critical line on what we can and cannot include and what dosages we will and will not include. And then, what we also lean into and are sort of committing to over the next several years is doing more clinicals to prove the efficacy and safety of our products themselves, and specifically, and that takes a pretty big investment and as well as time. But I think with our doctors and they are putting their names on the line, like we need to also kind of prove out the value and safety and efficacy of our products.
I love hearing, so much about your experience in the space and also that you were somebody who looked at your experience and your journey and decided, okay, here's a gap and here's where I feel failed. And now I'm going to create a product that will make another woman not go through what you went through or take the questioning or the gray area out of what to take, how to nourish your body, and also help the growth of your baby. And you're also a mom and have many children and also a lot going on in your life. And I think as moms, we talk about this balancing act that's actually never really a balancing act, but just, goes through different highs and lows of where what part of your life needs more energy than other parts. How has that been for you? Because obviously you have such a successful brand and product, and you also have, you know, a husband and children and a life going on.
I think I really focus on like quality over quantity with my kids and like carving out the time that I need to be with them. And, if I'm home to do bedtime, and even if it's only like 45 minutes, like I don't have my phone for that. And I know that sounds like a crazy small window, but like it's making sure those moments are really sacred. And um I don't know. I think right now it's just like we're in this phase where everything is being thrown at us, and I'm okay with that. Um and it's just like I'm either working or I'm with my kids, and that's just my two speeds and my two options. And it's crazy because our kids they're young right now, and like you don't want to miss that time, but I'm also like we're in these like pivotal moments in our career and like building a business, and so you
Right.
can't miss some of that stuff either.
That's so awesome. And I love hearing about, the journey because it is a 5-year-old company and being able to see how far you guys have come in those 5 years and how much success you've had and also how many women you're helping just have peace of mind about making certain choices for them, for their families and just for life is just really inspiring, I think, for so many people and definitely for me. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your whole experience. Protein, protein, protein.
Oh yeah, load up.
I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Victoria for such a great conversation, learning all about how she has come to where she is today with such a successful product line with Perelel and just so much about women's health and the importance of knowing what is in the products that you're taking, the importance of protein, and also cutting yourself some slack as a parent when things don't go your way. Thank you.